The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
At least in today's world, I don't think of the Amazon as being populous. I mean, I'm not talking about Manaus and cities.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
right.
the wild Amazon. You don't think of civilizations being able to impact that much vastness.
Graham Hancock thinks there was 20 million people living in it.
20 million?
Yeah.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
He thinks it was a vast society.
Wow.
It was filled with human beings and structures, and this is all being like, they have only used LiDAR in a very small percentage of the Amazon.
Of course, yeah.
And they're showing all sorts of structures
Wow.
and irrigation systems and grids that indicate cities and blocks. It's wild stuff, man.
I mean, it sort of makes sense in the sense of the abundance of resources down there, right? It's easy to grow a population when you have so much natural resources. Everything that you plant grows, There's another side of that argument that I've heard paleontologists make where, like, when things are too easy, people don't evolve, right? That's a different side of that coin. But if you think about it from like a logical standpoint of when things are easy, it's easy to increase your population. And, when you're not fighting for survival every day because there's coconuts and palm trees and blah, 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 it's easy to reproduce and have more kids and grow a society versus when you're spending half of your life just trying to get by.
That's an interesting argument, that when things are easy, that people don't grow or evolve. That seems weird to me, because it would seem to me that once your resources were taken care of, once you have food and shelter, you have more time to think. So you have more time to make life convenient, more time to sell goods that would be valuable to people, more time to improve and innovate on those goods.
But the argument is, when things are too easy, you don't push the status quo. So because there are so many abundant resources, you have no need to develop tools and technologies that advance society. So the argument, I don't remember the scientist that said this, it's basically, if you look along the band of the equator, those are, at this time, and this is an older publication, I believe, those were the least developed societies in the world. As you get further away from the equator, up into the not the Arctic, but like up into Scandinavia and so on and so forth, you get more and more advanced civilizations. Because when there's a hard winter coming, or it's just harder to survive, even though there's abundant resources, you need to adapt and overcome and develop in order to prepare for that winter, in order to prepare for a famine time period, versus when it's all just available to you at any time.
The reason why that doesn't make any sense is Egypt.
Sure. Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, because that's the absolutely most sophisticated culture, but what we understand of history.
Yeah, true. But not on the equator. It is quite far from the equator.
It is far from the equator, but it's also like very, very lush.
Very.
Like the Nile Valley, they think, 9,000 plus years ago was like extremely lush, which is one of the reasons why they were able to reach this high level of sophistication, because they had access to resources.
Which aligns with the idea that the Amazon had the same things.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, by the way. I think that if you have an abundance of food and resources, you have a better ability to create.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think both things could exist.
I agree.
Like, you could have it too easy, or you could have it to the point where there's plenty of food to hunt and gather, and you see no need to move out of the hunter-gatherer stage.
Sure.
But then you could also see like super sophisticated societies that lived in that area, like they think the Amazon was.
Right.
That they would innovate.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it makes
also,
sense.
you have a large population. Even if it's a small percentage of people innovating, it's gonna impact the great number of people.
If you have enough people, there's going to be people that are creating, right?
Yeah.
There's no way there aren't.
Yeah, and then people came through there with their coughed on everybody and fucking killed them off.
And that's that.
This is really wild, man. It's really wild if that is true. That how horrific that is, that they just basically reset everybody back to the Stone Age.
And if you think about, has that happened before, and will it happen again?
Yeah.
I remember distinctly thinking, well, at first, I think might have told you this story. When COVID hit, I was in Indonesia, and I was like, this is stupid. It's like bird flu. It'll all be over in 10 days. And boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
But I remember shortly after that distinctly thinking, like, this might be the beginning of the collapse, right? Like, this could be where human population collapses. Like, this is the plague that the planet has been waiting for. This is this generation of smallpox, but it obviously, science and medicine overcame that at too fast of a rate. And it really wasn't that lethal. But
well, it wasn't. It was the fact that it wasn't lethal.
Right.
Even if science and medicine didn't do anything, it wasn't going to kill everybody off.